Alan is a shut-in demon lord who lives in an abandoned mansion far away from society because he's afraid to touch grass. However, when he rescues a runaway princess falsely accused of a crime, he turns her into his personal maid and spoils her every night in exchange for keeping her safe. It all starts when Princess Charlotte is being chased by some soldiers in a forest. As she runs for her life, the soldiers realize they're closing in on the demon lord's lair, and one of them explains that the demon lord tortures anyone who comes close to his mansion. The men piss their pants and decide to search elsewhere, but Charlotte, who has been hiding behind a tree, overhears this and runs into the forest. However, she trips like a dumb and calls out her sister Natalia, only to see a mansion before passing out. The following day, a chill guy named Alan reads the newspaper like a boomer and learns about Charlotte's disappearance. Just then, he notices a presence in the forest, and while investigating, he comes across a bunch of animals gathered in one spot. As he approaches them, he finds a passed-out Charlotte who looks like your mom after she gets run through by a BBC.
Emotional, damn it!
He carries her in his arms, wondering if she ran away from her abductor. Just then, he notices a knight behind a tree and teleports next to him, causing him to swing his sword. Easily dodging his attacks, Alan realizes he's a personal guard from the nearest kingdom who works for the royal family. He questions why they're here, and dozens of other knights come out of hiding to surround him. They explain Charlotte is a runaway criminal in their country, and he needs to hand her over, but Alan refuses because he believes in pumping before dumping. After he rids all of them but one, the remaining knight recognizes him as the demon lord who resides in the forest. Alan confirms this, followed by another spell that removes their memories and sends them on their way with a fake story of how the princess got away. He takes her inside, and as he prepares remedies for her, he questions if she's sold feet pics to Discord mod to end up here. As Charlotte wakes up, he offers her a warm drink and asks her to explain how she got here. After hearing her story, he confirms that she is in fact the girl from the newspaper. He then tells her that he has the power to tell if a person is lying by looking into their eyes, and he sees nothing but truth in hers. This causes Charlotte to tear up, and after comforting her, he asks why she was exiled from the kingdom. She explains how she was at a party where her fiancé Prince Cecil called for her and confronted her for being a Twitch thought. He then accused her of many things in front of everyone, but Charlotte was so confused she couldn't even react to everything that was happening around her. Before she could process it, her engagement was called off, and she was to be sent to prison for her crimes. Alan realizes that Cecil must have framed her for being bad in bed because someone else gave him a better sloppy toppy. Charlotte politely asks him not to bother himself with her affairs, but Alan dismisses her and asks if she's good at cleaning. When she says yes, Alan gets excited and decides to hire her as a live-in maid, while he's explaining that she'll need to get on her knees 3 times a day for meals.
Yeah, boy.
She reminds him that she is a wanted criminal. This ruins Alan's plans of living a secluded life, but then he recalls getting betrayed in the past like her. He explains how he was at an adventurer's party and raided a temple full of treasures with his squad. However, they left him to die at a monster's mercy, and Charlotte believes his story without any doubt, making him realize she's the perfect candidate to give him soul-snatching sloppy toppies. He insists she stays, but when Charlotte gently refuses, thinking she'll cause him trouble, the idiot puts a death curse on himself that won't lift until she lets him hit it from the back. Charlotte, being an innocent princess, falls for his lies and agrees to work here, thinking she's saving his life. Later, she gets into the maid outfit and makes the place clean and tidy, much to Alan's delight. He's surprised to see a noble lady with good household skills, but then realizes it must be because she was treated like a servant back home. Charlotte then asks if he really needs her help since he can just clean everything with magic, but Alan assures her no amount of magic can get her the oral support that he needs. Since the place is clean for the day, Alan tells her to do whatever she wants till dinner and enters his study. Charlotte follows him in and is fascinated, but when Alan asks her to skedaddle because he has to work, she gets a little sad. After she leaves, Alan gets into his favorite hobby, which is to reject all the new theories at the Magic Academy, who know him as the Red Pen Devil. After hours of work, he catches Charlotte counting grains like a mental patient, but knows deep down shotties with a few loose screws tighten their grip elsewhere.
What do you mean by that?
Later, he asks if she has any hobbies, but all she knows is how to be a good housewife. He then asks if she enjoys doing anything, only to learn that she got yelled at for everything she did, even if it was right. Her most recent good memory for getting fruits from her younger sister Natalia, who offered her as a condolence after she got beat up. Alan is furious because even virgin losers like you have some good moments in life, And then there is Charlotte, who has never had a moment of pleasure since she was born. He then decides to give her a crash course in naughtiness and sells all his magical equipment to get her a bunch of stuff. He then asks her a few more questions and realizes she's a super innocent girl who doesn't know the fun of breaking rules, so he takes it upon himself to turn her into a freaky blonde. He then uncovers the dining table, revealing loads of stuff she's never had before, and tells her to eat to her heart's content. Charlotte gets worried seeing so many beers and desserts, but Alan knows she was treated like a servant and insists she eats cake. When Charlotte refuses, Alan realizes she's still a servant at heart and orders her to try the cake because he is her master now. She agrees to eat if Alan eats with her, but when he says he doesn't even like this stuff, she realizes he bought all of this stuff only for her. When she asks why, he says he did it to make her happy, which makes her blush. As she tries the cake, she loves it so much that she breaks down into tears and questions if someone like her even deserves to be happy. Alan assures her that this is only the beginning, and she'll become an OnlyFans model by the time he's done pumping her. After a heartfelt moment, Alan gives her more stuff to eat, and she politely asks him to eat with her. Alan reminds her he doesn't like cakes, but she looks at him all cute, urging the guy to try it for the first time. As the two eat together, Alan realizes he'll have to bend his ways so she can bend for him on the dining table. Later, he returns to his room to reflect on everything that has happened and stays up all night to introduce Charlotte to more pleasures of this world, including his Excalibur.
Yeah, boy.
The following day, he wakes up on his desk and proudly presents the naughty list he's compiled for Charlotte. However, the list turns out to be quite lame, so he decides to throw it into the trash. As he leaves the room, he runs into Charlotte holding a broom and tells her he slept in the study, carefully hiding the fact that he stayed up creating Santa's naughty list for her. However, when Charlotte notices that he looks tired, Alan decides to sleep and asks her to wake him up for lunch. He then asks what she is up to, and when Charlotte says she plans to clean the entrance, he asks her to take it easy. Charlotte gently says she is doing all of this because she is in his debt, and her elegance makes Alan want to practice yoga poses on her. Upon learning that Charlotte is used to cleaning, Alan gets annoyed because her family has a lot of servants, yet she was forced to do chores because they didn't like her. Seeing the anger on his face, Charlotte gets scared and skedaddles out of the room, leaving Alan to wonder how she never speaks ill of the people who hurt. Just then, Alan hears a familiar voice outside and frantically rushes out to see Charlotte beside a female Jacksepticeye. As soon as she learns Charlotte is a new maid, she pushes Alan aside and introduces herself as Miacha, the male delivery girl. She calls Alan the Demon Lord and jokes about him being too broke to hire a maid, and Alan explains to Charlotte that Demon Lord is just his nickname. Miacha then recognizes Charlotte's face from the newspapers, but before Alan can cover for her, Miacha promises not to snitch because the customer always comes first. Later, Alan asks her to take a package to the magic store and tells her to carry it carefully because it's dangerous. Miacha says his potion sells a lot and asks him to move to the city where it'll be easier to make money. But Alan is a lonely virgin like y'all who prefers his man cave. Miacha then adds that he has a scary look on his face, which is why people call him the Demon Lord, which takes him to a flashback. One time, 3 kids were roaming around in the forest looking to catch some ghosts when he showed up with a lamp and inadvertently scared them off with his mean look. Ever since that day, kids have been coming to the forest as a test of courage, thinking he's the Demon Lord when in reality he's just a lonely sorcerer hungry for some kitty. Changing the subject, Alan asks Miacha if she can deliver stuff other than mail, and she pulls out a catalog of everything her company moves around. After taking a look, he asks Charlotte to make a list of whatever she needs from here so he can place an order for her. She happily goes through the book and places her order, but when she promises to pay him back, Alan assertively tells her to keep the money and drops to her knees instead. Miacha steps in and advises Charlotte to keep Alan at bay, but she says she's in his debt and will do anything to pay him back. As she throws some punches at Alan to teach Charlotte, the guy suddenly starts smirking and gets a new idea on how to turn Charlotte into a naughty American. The next day, Miacha returns with Charlotte's package and Alan realizes she's totally attached to her. She then delivers the item Alan ordered and asks what he plans to do with it. Alan tells her it's for Charlotte, and Miacha says it makes sense because she is more active than him. As Charlotte wonders what they're talking about, Alan snaps his fingers and reveals a punching bag. Miacha explains it's sports equipment used to practice boxing, making Charlotte question why she needs to use it in the first place. Alan says it's the naughty thing of the day, and Miacha starts blushing thinking they're breaking beds as well. Afterward, Alan asks Charlotte to imagine Cecil's face on the punching bag and hit it as hard as she wants. When she hesitates, he teaches her that while being patient is okay, it's also important to let the anger out. He continues to urge Charlotte to let herself go, but she says she doesn't have any anger to begin with. Even after he reminds her of the terrible things that were done to her, Charlotte smiles and replies, the prince must have had his reasons for casting her out. On the contrary, she is grateful to his family for raising her and believes it was unfair for Cecil to be engaged to her. Alan realizes the problem is rooted deep within her heart, and his plan of giving her justice will not be as easy as he thought. Alan notices that Charlotte has learned to suppress her feelings, and even if the villains were punished, she would just blame herself for it. Miecha then notices the worry on her face and asks Alan to let Charlotte be for a while as this is moving too fast for her comfort. Alan agrees, but instead of leaving her alone, he asks Charlotte to hit him instead, which makes her panic. Charlotte backs off, saying he's done so much for her and that she should let him hit it instead of the other way around. However, Alan doesn't listen and uses a spell to force her into punching his face, which makes her lose her mind. Alan explains it was his own doing and then promises that he will never abandon her no matter how bad she is at giving sloppy toppies. He then tells her that she's now a free woman, and Charlotte gets upset because he could have told her all of this without making her punch him in the face. Seeing her like this makes him realize Charlotte still can show anger if she wants, so he heals his wounds to make her feel better. However, Charlotte starts scolding him because he still gets hurt because of his own stubbornness. She then asks Alan not to do anything like that ever again, and Alan quickly takes the glove off her hand. Charlotte promises that she'll start to live more freely from now on, though it will take her some time to get used to her new life. Seeing them share a moment, Miecha gets super happy and starts to ship them. She then asks Alan to keep using her services because he might need a double bed and a baby cart soon, but none of them can understand what she means. Meanwhile, a mysterious girl finally locates Alan's mansion and plans to pay him a visit soon. The next day, Alan asks Charlotte if she likes tea or coffee, but what she really likes is some early morning pumping. Alan then shows him what he is having, and she frantically asks for a cup of tea. She then admits running away from prison was the first thing she did on her own, and asking for tea is the second and last. Alan is happy to see her make progress and tells her to ask for anything that needs because he won't ever say no to unclogging her pipes. Just then, the girl from earlier jumps in through the window, and Alan asks how she found him. She says she narrowed her search to this region from the pollen of his letters and then asked the locals for directions. Charlotte asks Alan who this girl is, and she teleports right next to her, introducing herself as Iruka, an apprentice sorcery engineer, and Alan's younger sister. Alan then reveals she's actually his stuck-in-the-washing-machine stepsister because he lost his parents when he was young and Iruka's family took her in. Iruka then asks Alan if this blonde is his friend with benefits, but they both decline it in unison. Alan claims Charlotte must be disgusted to be shipped with a smelly loser like him, but she frantically says she doesn't mind as long as he's packing more than 6 inches. Iruka asks them to tell her the truth, and Alan tells her she's a runaway criminal from a neighboring country. Charlotte is hesitant to have her secret spilled, but Alan assures her Iruka has the means to find out on her own, so it is best to tell her the truth. After she learns the whole ordeal, Iruka calls him a stupid idiot! She feels bad for Charlotte because Alan has been making her do dumb stuff instead of giving her a backshot. She then turns to her and says Charlotte's clean despite her suspicious background because Alan has the ability to sniff bad guys and he didn't get any bad vibes from her. She reveals she initially came here to bring him home, but now she will stay here as well and take care of Charlotte. This starts a competition between the siblings on who can teach her to be a naughty girl, and Charlotte is stuck in the midst of it. Later, Alan uses magic to turn her into a brunette so people don't recognize her in the city. However, he demands they remove the spell once they return because blonde suits her the best, which makes her blush. Iruka thinks his brother is trying to get a shoddy on his willy and drags Charlotte away before he tries anything funny. She takes her to a boutique to have her try different dresses, and Alan hesitantly comes with them because he has to stick around for the competition. He then recalls his childhood when Iruka would challenge him to a chess match, and no matter how many times she lost, she would never give up. He wonders if it was Iruka's attempt to get closer to him, but he is snapped back to reality when Charlotte shows him her new dress. Alan blushes and comments that it's a little too short, but when he finds himself staring at her silky smooth twin towers, he punches himself in the heart to make her stop beating so fast. After Charlotte leaves to try another dress, Alan asks Iruka to give her the current state of the Nero's kingdom. Iruka says she'll also look into the prince, but Alan tells her to let it be for now because he wants to punish those who hurt Charlotte and won't be able to hold back. Iruka finds it amusing how invested Alan is in this matter, but before they can talk further, Charlotte asks Iruka to help her fasten the clasp on her back. Charlotte then comes out looking like a fine piece of meat, and when Alan says it's too revealing, Iruka replies girls need to be aggressive to show dominance. She then makes Charlotte turn around and shows Alan her back, which is full of scars from the abuse she was put through. They both act like they saw nothing and declare an unsaid agreement that the people who did this to Charlotte need to be punished. Alan then secretly uses his healing magic to make the scars disappear because he knows Charlotte isn't even aware that she has them. Alan then tells Iruka to help him take care of the matter and hides the truth from Charlotte by telling her a fake story about mites. Changing the subjects, Iruka asks Alan to pick an outfit for Charlotte, and the guy picks one at random because he's too nervous. However, that dress turns out to be what your mom wears at the club, making them all blush. Alan then decides that the best way to make Charlotte feel naughty is to let her buy anything she wants without any restriction, but everything he chooses either turns out to be ugly or lame. In the end, they buy loads of stuff for Charlotte, but she isn't quite happy because they basically wasted their money on her. However, when Alan says everything looks great on her, Charlotte begins to blush, which confuses Alan. Iruka then comments that everything he bought was lame, which starts another heated argument between them. Charlotte steps in and asks them to stay calm, and they tell her not to worry because this is an average Tuesday for them. Alan then realizes that he does in fact suck when it comes to shopping, but since he has to win for his ego, he continues the shopping spree until the evening. On the way, Iruka spots a guy in a magical wheelchair and is drawn to him like iron to a magnet, so Alan uses this chance to slip away with Charlotte. He takes her to a jewelry stall where he buys a hairpin that matches Charlotte's eye color. The shop lady demands a silver coin for it, but Alan gives her a gold coin instead, hoping he'd let him tap if Charlotte doesn't. He then puts it in Charlotte's hair, which causes both of them to share a wholesome moment. Just then, some thugs bump into Charlotte and start scolding her for walking carelessly. Alan is about to turn them into dust, but then recalls Charlotte telling him that fighting is bad, prompting him to apologize. However, one of the guys demands that he let them slap Charlotte's kitty for the night, and Alan replies by breaking his fingers. The other one pulls out his sword and tries to slice Alan, but Alan easily defeats him and vows to game end him if he even looks at Charlotte. The crowd gathers around and starts cheering for Alan for being a mega simp, but Alan apologizes to Charlotte for starting a fight once again. However, Charlotte gently grabs his hand and tells him that it's oak because he only did it to protect her. As they share a moment, Iruka watches from the crowd and admits she has lost the competition to Alan. Just then, a giant mech appears behind them and asks Alan if he's the one who took out his men. Alan confidently approaches the guide and asks if he's Megath. When the robot gives a cold answer, Alan is certain he's Megath and starts patting his head, which irritates him. When he swings at him, Alan realizes that Megath does not remember him, but once he tells him who he is, Megath gets on his knees and apologizes for his behavior. When Megath's own men provoke him, he shuts them all down, which confuses Charlotte. Iruka appears and tells her that their father is the chairperson of the biggest magical academy in the country, and Alan is the youngest graduate from the institute. After graduating, he became a teacher at the academy, where he earned his nickname, the Great Demon Lord. Alan is hit with a wave of nostalgia, but then asks Megath to raise his head because he didn't cause any trouble to him. However, he did cause trouble to his associate Charlotte, but that leads him to wonder what his relation is with said woman. He wonders if Charlotte is just a maid, a second sister, or maybe someone who can give him soul-snatching sloppies. No matter what she is definitely someone precious to Alan. A few days later, Mayacha and Iruka find Alan in a gloomy mood, and they're both confused as to why he looks so down. When he fails to answer, Iruka assumes Charlotte must have refused to let him slap her kitty, and her guess is right on the money. They ask if he and Charlotte had a fight, but Alan says it's more complicated than that. The previous night, Alan told Charlotte that he'd give her wages for her work, but she thought she wasn't good enough to get paid. Alan told her that his house had been in a much better state ever since she joined and urged her to accept the payment. He then advised her to spend that money on herself, and Charlotte hesitantly said that she would like to go to town by herself. Now Alan is stuck here alone, wondering if it's safe because she could get captured again. Iruka is surprised because Charlotte is usually very considerate of Alan's feelings, but this action of hers has left the guy in distress. Alan then reveals Charlotte withdrew her request immediately. but he couldn't see her sad and allowed her to go under disguise. Alan is worried about her safety, but Iruka proposes an easy solution to his problem. While Charlotte arrives in town, the three of them stalk her from a distance and Alan is proud to see her using the map like he taught her. Iruka asks why she wanted to come to town in the first place, and Alan says she had to buy something. Alan tried asking her what she needed, but Charlotte refused to tell them. However, this further amuses Alan because Charlotte is now keeping secrets and becoming more freaky day by day. Just then, the group realizes that Charlotte is a little lost and is heading towards the Mirrored District, which isn't very safe. Maicha explains that a group named Serpent Fawn controls the area and their leader Gro is a Viper Charmer. Iruka suggests they intervene before Charlotte gets in trouble, but Alan doesn't want to interfere in her first adventure. He then remembers that he has to do something and leaves Alan in the girl's care. Iruka and Miecha keep following Charlotte into the Mirrored District, and soon after, she's surrounded by dozens of the gang members. Iruka worries for her safety and tries to intervene, but Gro and the other members warmly welcome Charlotte, thanking her for coming to their humble abode. As they shower her with confetti, both Iruka and Miecha are confused as to why they're being nice to her. Just then, Alan appears and reveals he's scared Gro and his men ahead of time, forcing them to play nice to Charlotte when she arrives. Just then, Charlotte notices that they're all pretty beat and gives them a magical potion to heal their injuries. Her act of kindness resonates with the men, so much so that they break down into tears and vow to become better people from now on. As they all fall to their knees, Alan watches in awe, amused at her ability to earn people's trust. Gro then asks how she's related to the Demon Lord, and when she asks if they are his friends, he tells his men to keep their mouths shut or Alan will give them a round two. Charlotte is then left to wonder how he's related to Alan, and tells the men that Alan gave her a place to live because she doesn't have a home. Keeping that in mind, she says Alan is her master, which breaks his heart because it sounds immoral. The goons wonder if she was tricked into serving that wretched fool and asks her if she needs to be freed from his chains. Alan realizes that his reputation as a demon lord scares even the thugs, while Charlotte has become a kind goddess in contrast. He starts to believe she's too good for him, but Charlotte calmly tells the thugs that Alan is a gentleman and there must be some misunderstanding between them. She then tells them that Alan teaches her all kinds of naughty things, which makes them all think she's speedrunning all the bet positions with him. As they stand there with blank expressions, Charlotte mindlessly says she and Alan did naughty things all night long, which further ruins his reputation. In reality, she and Alan stayed up all night playing video games and eating snacks, but she's making it sound like they were going to pound town. After she leaves, the squad is relieved she made it through here, but when Iruka says there are some other dangerous parties here, Alan tells her not to worry because he'll handle it all. The three of them then go around the district fighting all the gangs and making the area safe and sound for Charlotte. Iruka then tells Alan to skedaddle since it's all safe and Charlotte doesn't want him to know what she is buying. Maicha volunteers to look after her, and Alan hesitantly leaves them be. In the evening, Iruka and Alan are waiting outside a bar, and Mayaka returns with the news that Charlotte has finished her shopping. She further tells him that Charlotte ran into one of her friends on the way and is now safe. Alan then whispers in her ear and asks what Charlotte bought, but Maicha honestly says she did not see it. Just then, Charlotte herself shows up and happily reunites with them. She then reveals everyone down the street was talking about Alan and how he made the roads safe by taking out the thugs. Alan realizes he did this only for Charlotte, but his actions have unintentionally made him the hero of this town. Charlotte's acquaintance thanks him for everything and tells her she got lucky with her choice of boyfriend. After she leaves, Alan and Charlotte both start blushing, and Alan hesitantly asks how her day was to divert the topic. Charlotte excitedly tells him about what she bought and pulls out 2 gifts for Iruka and Miecha respectively. As they crowd her with excitement, Alan stands there heartbroken and jealous because she didn't get him anything. Iruka and Miecha then show off their cat plushie and a new hat respectively, and Alan sternly asks her if she got him anything too. Charlotte says she looked through many things to find something that would make him happy, but in the end she gave up because she had no idea what he liked other than busty goth girls. Alan argues he would have been happy with anything, so Charlotte offers to mend his robe while he tells her more about himself, so she can know what he likes. Hearing this, Alan starts seeing butterflies and starts feeling a warm sensation in his heart. At night, Charlotte returns the book he lent from Alan and reveals it taught her so many things about the region. Alan then asks if she would like to check out any area from the book, but Charlotte hesitates knowing he'll take her on a trip even though she's already indebted to him. She even says she prefers spending most of her time in the mansion with him, and she shouldn't do naughty things that often, or she'll become a bad girl. Alan has no intention to corrupt her and only wants her to experience the joy of getting run through by a BBC, so he insists they go on a trip tomorrow morning. He then grabs her by the chin and asks where she wants to go, but when she fails to answer, he decides to put another death curse on himself. Just then, Mayacha enters the room with another delivery, which happens to be a trip to the you-know-her region. The next day, Alan takes Charlotte to the you-know-her region that's a 3-hour ride from his mansion. Charlotte is fascinated to see the plains, explaining that all she ever saw were mountains back in the nearest kingdom. Alan then asks her to relax because it's a rural area and her wanted posters had not reached here. Charlotte then asks why he didn't pick Iruka for the trip, and Alan replies it's because she had to run some errands. Unbeknownst to him, Iruka and Mayacha are following their wagon in disguise, excited to see Alan swipe Charlotte's V card. They're both looking forward to seeing them develop their relationship and even went as far as to pay for the trip with their own money. Just then, they pass by an inn and Charlotte shows Alan that it is the most popular in the region according to the guidebook. Alan asks if she's excited to try the hotel, and when Charlotte nervously says yes, he immediately calls her out for lying. Alan starts going through the book to find something that Charlotte likes, but she snatches it away and admits that she is looking forward to the hot spring. Even though it's a bit embarrassing for her, she believes Alan will laugh at her for having childish demands, but Alan brings her closer to his face and assures her that he will satisfy all of her needs without ever making fun of her. As they arrive at the resort, they are greeted by the receptionist who guides them to the hot spring and mistakes them as a newly couple celebrating their honeymoon. This stirs panic between the two, and when Alan asks how she came to this conclusion, the receptionist says it's because their trip package is for married couples. Alan then realizes it was all part of Miacha's plan, unaware that she and Iruka are constantly keeping an eye on them. The receptionist then asks Alan to take the plan anyway since it's their most expensive and luxurious, and the guy hesitantly agrees to it. Later, she gives in a welcome drink in the house, but it's a single glass with 2 straws in it. Iruka is excited to see them all lovey-dovey drinking from the same glass, but Alan ends up chugging the whole thing by himself. They are then taken to the hot spring facility, and the receptionist advises them to choose the open-air bath. Alan agrees with her since it will stop him from staring at Charlotte's factory. But panic stirs as she takes Charlotte away to get her a swimsuit. Alan then waits by the pool and wonders how far he'll throw his milk upon seeing Charlotte in a swimsuit. He agrees to stop his heart with magic if he can't control himself. But when Charlotte finally arrives looking like a full-course meal, his heart stops without using any magic. She believes it doesn't look good on her, but Alan glares at the melons and assures her that she looks extra beautiful today. After an awkward moment, Alan drags her into the water so they can do the things that can only be done in a hot spring. The two then spend hours playing games and end their day by watching the sunset in the spring. Iruka and Mayacha are watching from a distance, delighted that their plan to get Alan a shoddy is going well. As Charlotte enjoys her time, Alan asks the receptionist to bring ice cream so they can eat it in water and feel even naughtier. He then uses a magic spell to make sure it doesn't melt, and Charlotte loves every bite of it. Meanwhile, Iruka gets a little sad seeing her brother keeping his distance from Charlotte, but she's distracted when everyone at the hot spring starts ordering ice cream from the receptionist. Just then, a dad asks Alan to put a spell on his ice cream too so his son can enjoy it, and Alan decides to help all of them because he is in a good mood. Later, the receptionist thanks Alan for the help, stating that they sold a lot of ice cream all thanks to him. To return the favor, the receptionist offers to make their sightseeing for tomorrow as special as possible. Alan then asks if she has any recommendations, and she suggests they visit the Fenrirs, noble and peaceful magical beings that bring good luck to anyone who sees them. However, since the Fenrirs are in childbearing season and rarely come to the mountains, he advises they go to the zoo, which excites Charlotte. At night, as they head to their bedroom, they see the room decorated for some fun, which makes them panic. Unbeknownst to them, it was all arranged by Iruka and Mayacha, hoping that Alan would finally get a chance to break her seal. Meanwhile, Alan and Charlotte prepare to sleep, recalling the receptionist telling them that it has a magical crystal that lets them have any dream they want. As they lie down, Alan asks Charlotte what dream she wants to see, and she says she'd like to see her mom who has passed away. When she says she has trouble falling asleep, Alan uses a light hypnotic spell to make her fall asleep, and after checking her pulse and breathing pattern, he uses a stronger spell to put himself to bed. The next day, he wakes up and sees Charlotte with teary eyes, who explains she got to see her mother in the dream. Unbeknownst to him, Alan was in that dream too and saw her telling her mother about him. The next day, they visit the zoo where they see a lot of magical creatures, but Charlotte is uptight because she doesn't want to drag Alan with her selfish wish. Alan assures her it's fine and asks what she'd like to do, and Charlotte hesitantly points at the petting zoo. He then tells her to ask anything she wants, but when Charlotte hesitates, he once again pretends to put a death curse on his heart. After his overacting, Charlotte gets 2 pairs of cat ears and asks Alan to wear one with her. As he buys the pair, a group of magical beings watches over him, and their leader, a hell capybara, is ready to battle him with his pack of Fenrir. Later, Alan sees a poster about the capybara and recalls they can level a mountain if they're hungry. Charlotte, on the other hand, starts crying because she finds their round and fluffy presence quite endearing. She thanks Alan for letting her experience things she's never experienced before, but Alan reminds her that she hasn't even petted anything yet. Alan wipes her tears and takes her inside, where he speaks to rabbits using their language and asks them to play with Charlotte in exchange for food. However, when he turns his attention to Charlotte, he is shocked to see that she's already befriended pretty much every magical creature in the zoo. Even after she steps out, the animals keep loving her from a distance and angrily tell Alan not to harm her or they'll hunt him down. Recalling how Charlotte was surrounded by animals when he first found her, he tells her about different magical affinities in the world and believes she is a beast tamer. Judging by how she's able to befriend animals with ease without any training, it's highly likely that she possesses such powers. Before they can dwell on it further, the zookeeper lady comes running in and asks Alan to help her. She takes her to the dome, where several staff members are going through many books, and the elderly member immediately recognizes Alan as the teacher in the magical academy. He then takes them to the back room, where an injured and angry Fenrir is caged. The director reveals it was separated from its pack and was shot by a poacher who probably wanted to sell its high-quality fur and hide. Now it's pissed off and won't talk to anyone, and they need an expert to calm it down so they can heal its injuries. Alan tries to talk to it, but to no avail, and before they can figure out what to do with it, the zookeeper arrives and says that Fenrir's mother is headed their way. Alan realizes a mother Fenrir is strong enough to wipe out an entire city, and returning the cub in this state will only escalate the matter. In a moment of panic, Alan asks the staff to empty the zoo while he holds the mother back, but Charlotte decides to use her beast tamer powers to calm the cub down. Alan refuses to put her in danger, but when Charlotte and the rest insist, he gets happy knowing that Charlotte has not grown enough to fight for others. He then asks the director to let her talk to the cub, while he goes out and holds the mother back. In the meantime, Iruka and Maecha are enjoying the sun when they hear the announcement to evacuate the zoo. Alan then finds a pack of Fenrir headed towards the resort and uses a magical barrier to protect the people inside. He then uses an ice spell to freeze the other cubs, only to get attacked by a giant Fenrir mother. Alan is almost crushed by her and decides to put her down, but the hell capybara shows up and asks him to rethink his actions. It then introduces itself as Gosetsu and reveals he's come here to rescue the lady who is forced to stay by Alan's side. Alan asks how he knows about Charlotte, and Gosetsu reveals he once met her when he snuck out of the zoo. Before he could save her, Alan showed up on the scene and carried her inside his house, and he's been watching her ever since. He's concluded that Alan is an evil person and he must eliminate him to rescue her, but Alan calls him a jealous pick, which starts a brawl between the two. As their battle continues, Gosetsu vows to destroy the entire kingdom because it brings Charlotte pain. He also tells the Fenrir that Alan is the one who took their cub, so now they're all lining up to wipe the floor with him. Alan starts to get nervous because even he cannot take so many at once, but Charlotte suddenly arrives with aid and reveals she's managed to tame the cub. Alan asks who these animals are, and Charlotte reveals all of them came on their own because they wanted to keep her safe. Turns out Charlotte can already understand their language, which shocks Alan because it took him half a year to master basic creature language. Charlotte then tells the mother Fenrir that Alan is not the poacher, and Gosetsu uses this chance to tell her that Alan is a wretched man who'll treat her poorly. However, Charlotte argues that Alan has given her nothing but love and backshots, and it is because of him that she has finally experienced the pleasures of life. Gosetsu starts to think she's manipulated and tries using force to take her away, but Alan faces it head-on and takes him out with his magic. Gosetsu comes to his senses and realizes Alan might actually be in love with her because the only reason a man wears cat ears is to get some kitty. As they return, the receptionist thanks Alan for the help, but he gives all the credit to Charlotte, because it would not have been possible without her. Despite having loads of fun, it is now time to get home, but before they can leave, they are stopped by the mother Fenrir and her cubs who've come to say goodbye. Charlotte then recalls that they still haven't found the real poachers, but that's all taken care of thanks to Iruka and Miacha. When the poachers show no remorse for their actions, Alan raises their defense to ensure they don't and leaves Fenrir's mother to discipline them. As they prepare to leave, one of the Fenrir cubs insists on coming with them, and Alan doesn't understand why the mother has let her cub free. The receptionist then explains their region is an hour away from here, so the cub can always come back to see his mother if needed. Alan then invites the cub to live at their mansion as a member of their family, and Charlotte is so impressed by his kindness that she might as well get on her knees. She is super happy to learn that she is also part of his family, unaware that Alan is an Alabama resident. As they drive back, Gosetsu forcefully tags along and appoints himself as Charlotte's bodyguard as a token of apology for causing trouble. At home, Charlotte names the Fenrir Lu and goes on a walk with her, leaving Alan feeling left out. Gosetsu notices this and declares he loves her as much as Alan, which is why he'll stay here forever even though Alan is not okay with it. Alan also admits he's a little jealous that Charlotte doesn't spend as much time with him as before, but is happy she has a friend now. A few nights ago, Charlotte asked Alan to teach her more about magical creatures, and Alan spent the next few days educating her on different types of animals and how to tame them. During these days, Alan realized Charlotte was a passionate and hardworking student, and he is delighted to see a new side of her. She then uses her newfound power to command Lu and make her do parkour, much to her own surprise. Alan is impressed, stating that no one he knows has ever communicated with a Fenrir like this before. Gosetsu calls him a simp for glazing Charlotte, knowing all too well he's never gonna get to tap her with him around. Alan tries to pet Lu to stay relevant, but Lu growls at him, prompting Charlotte to scold her. She also apologizes to Alan, but the guy admits he doesn't have what it takes to tame Lu, so it's best if he keeps his hands off her. Gosetsu states Charlotte has reached the stage of the beast conversation, which means she can talk in her own language and still understand everything the creature says. She then asks how Gosetsu is able to communicate with all of them, and Gosetsu says he taught himself to speak human language. He suggests Charlotte try the conversion with Lu, prompting her to activate a magic spell. At first, Lu appears unaffected, but when Alan tries to comfort Charlotte, she tells him to keep his filthy hands off her mommy. Lu and Charlotte then start talking in human language, and even while super happy, Lu makes sure to growl at Alan to assert dominance. Later, Alan uses a magic spell to create a bathing tub for Lu, and Charlotte asks her to say thank you to Alan. Although hesitant, Lu does as told and jumps into it, followed by Gosetsu, who transforms himself into a woman to fit in. As they play inside, Alan enjoys the peaceful moment and realizes Charlotte has really come out of her shell ever since she got here. His heart starts beating fast when he looks at her, but he believes it's a side effect of putting too many curses on it. After a while, Charlotte joins him and thanks him for everything, but Alan says he's merely keeping his promise to teach him naughty things about life. Their conversation shifts to the mansion, and Alan reveals the prior owners of this place disappeared without a trace. Apparently, it was an eccentric elf that used to live here 30 years ago, and while some say they game-ended themselves, others say they were eaten by a monster of their own making. Just then, Alan turns to Charlotte and sees her horrified, not because of the story, but because Gosetsu's body is covered in red mushrooms. As they rush in to check, they realize the mushrooms are coming out of the water source, and suddenly a white-haired chick pops out of the ground demanding her mushrooms back. She then takes them to her basement where she introduces herself as Dorothea, and Alan surveys the room which tells him she's been living here for a while. Charlotte latches onto Alan's arm because she thinks Dorothea is a ghost, unaware that her action has caused a crime scene in Alan's pants. Dorothea shockingly asks them who they are, and when Alan says he lives in the mansion, she reveals that the place belongs to her. Alan questions if she's the elf that disappeared 30 years ago, and Dorothea is shocked to learn that she hasn't touched grass in 3 decades. As she heads to the surface, Gosetsu figures she's a dark elf, and Alan adds that dark elves are a rare breed with an elite status. Alan realizes this might be the first time anyone has seen a dark elf, a capybara, and a Fenrir in one place, but he doesn't understand why a dark elf went to hiding for 30 years. He also realizes the house still belongs to her, and if they settle it using the court, Charlotte's safety might get compromised. To solve the matter quickly, Alan asks Dorothea to sell this mansion to him, and she lets them use the place for free as long as they let her keep the basement. However, her only condition is that they help her with a personal matter. Alan asks Dorothea what she wants, and the elf confesses that she's actually a famous author. She explains she hit a massive writer's block while writing a romance novel and hid from her editor for 30 years. Now, after seeing him and Charlotte together, she suddenly feels inspired and demands that they start clapping so she can get material for her story. The next thing you know, Alan is already performing a romantic scene with Charlotte in which she jumps off the balcony into his arms, and the two declare their love for each other. However, Dorothea calls him out for using magic to levitate Charlotte's body instead of directly touching her. Alan admits holding Charlotte is a bit embarrassing, but Dorothea asks him to grow the F up. Later, she scolds them for sucking at flirting and gives them a script to follow, but Alan is already regretting saying yes to her absurd act. Despite the mansion being on the line, Alan suddenly goes back on his word and refuses to act, stating that Charlotte must hate seeing Clown Face so up close. Surprisingly, Charlotte says she would totally let him tap even when he looks like a Kaneki reject and doesn't mind flirting with him for the scene. Alan is so shocked he bangs his head against the wall and ends up bleeding, much to Charlotte's worry. After she puts a band-aid on his head, she asks Alan to try again, and the guy hesitantly agrees to act along. However, he refuses to do anything that violates public morality, as if he doesn't secretly wish to clap Charlotte all night long. Dorothea agrees and gives them the new script, revealing they have to act as newlyweds in the scene. Alan then acts as the husband who returns home from work, but gets scolded by her for acting unnaturally. On the next take, he makes it past the door and is greeted by Charlotte, who's playing as a housewife, and seeing her makes his heart race. Charlotte then asks if he'd like to eat dinner first or munch on her kitty. And the mere thought is enough to make Alan jizz all over the set. Dorothea once again scolds him for ruining the scene, but Alan calls her out for making Charlotte say inappropriate things. Dorothea agrees to keep it PG and rolls another scene. This time, Charlotte serves Alan's stew and is instructed to feed him with her own hands, which makes the guy blush. Everything is going well until she calls him Al instead of Alan, and once again the scene is ruined. When he calls Dorothea out, she claims nicknames are very normal among newlyweds and even asks him to call Charlotte Charlie. Alan believes she's just trying to toy with them, but Dorothea skips the newlywed scene and moves on to the next one, a school life situation. In the next scene, Alan is depicted as a lone wolf punk who runs into some thugs kidnapping Charlotte. To rescue her, he walks into the enemy territory all alone, where he runs into Gosetsu and Lou playing the villain's role. A brawl initiates between the two and Alan seems weaker at first. However, when Charlotte's safety is threatened, he powers up and defeats them in a single attack. Charlotte then thanks Alan for rescuing her, which reminds Alan of the time he took care of the thugs who were harassing her. The next scene involves Alan pinning her against the wall, but as soon as he does so, his heart starts running a marathon. As he contemplates what he feels about her, Gosetsu asks who he is, and Alan replies that he's her guardian. Dorothea immediately interrupts and scolds him for going off script, reminding him that he was supposed to say Charlotte is a part of his heart. After the scene, Alan realizes that if he tells her how he feels, Charlotte will force herself to reciprocate his feelings, which is something he doesn't want. In the next scene, Dorothea asks them to act in a Cinderella story, and even when Alan is tired, he agrees to do it because Charlotte seems happy about it. Dorothea then hands them the script, and as the scene plays, Charlotte is presented as the daughter of a mistress who is treated like a servant. After getting scolded by her mother, Charlotte questions the purpose of her life until a magical wolf appears and gives her a makeover. It then takes her to the ball where Prince Alan is waiting for him. Before her mother can interfere, she and Alan unite at the stairs and the guy asks her to dance with him. As the two dance away, Charlotte places her head on his chest, realizing that her heart races every time she's close to Alan. After the clock strikes 12, Dorothea calls for a cut and praises Charlotte for her performance. Even Lou and Gosetsu compliment her, which leaves Alan annoyed because no one is praising him for his efforts. When Lou refuses to bring him water, Charlotte offers her own glass to him, and the guy blushes because it's the same old indirect kiss BS. In continuation of the previous scene, Charlotte is supposed to move on with her life and forget what happened at the ball. Alan returns to her mansion looking for her with a hair ornament, but her mother lies that it belongs to her. Alan quickly dismisses her and turns her attention to the housemaid, realizing that her eye color matches the color of the ornament. Finally recognizing her, Alan asks if she can come with him, but Charlotte says she's not worthy because she's a mistress' daughter. Alan dismisses her worries and promises to protect her forever, making her realize it's much similar to their dynamic in real life. She improvises and asks what he feels about her, and just before Alan expresses his love, they are interrupted by a strange man who bangs open a hole in the wall. He then walks up to Lou and spots Dorothea hiding under the blanket, which signals that he is the editor she hid from for 30 years. She tries to run away, but is roped up, and the guy finds it amazing how she managed to hide from him all these years. Dorothea says she took extra precautions to hide her identity, and he says they wouldn't be in this situation if she had used up that energy into writing something. The guy then pays Alan the cost of damages to his property and carries Dorothea on his back. Dorothea begs Alan to help, thinking she'll be drowned in the ocean, but the editor says he's going to start with a volcanic crater first. After they leave, Charlotte asks Alan what he was about to say earlier, but they both get nervous and decide to leave it for another day. Just then, Eruca barges in and reveals Charlotte's younger sister Natalia is in trouble. After her mother passed away, she had no one to turn to, except for Natalia, who always treated her with go and got into a fight with his dad. Their fight was so bad that it lasted a total of 3 days and nights, and people to this day often talk about it. Eruca reveals that their fighting spot show her around later. As they walk home, Alan explains that his stepdad is actually his uncle who took him in after his parents left to get milk from God. Charlotte then reveals she's nervous because her actions must have caused Natalia trouble, but Alan assures her they can fix everything once they find her. Just then, they notice a commission nearby, but before they can stop the fight, a white-haired gentleman approaches the scene and sends the culprits to the Ice Age. Following that, he teleports to the group and greets both Eruca and Alan. He then turns to Charlotte, but before Alan can clear up the misunderstanding, Eruca hints at him to keep his mouth shut. Realizing it's part of Eruca's plan to save him from trouble, he turns to Charlotte and struggles to speak out. Charlotte practically reads his mind and introduces herself to Harvey, stating all the good things about Alan, including his giant meat saber. Harvey wholeheartedly accepts Charlotte and even suggests she settle down with Alan, but Alan says he plans to live a loner life forever. Eruca explains that Harvey wants Alan to take his seat as chairman, but Alan doesn't to be bound by his profession. Charlotte believes Harvey is very generous for offering his seat, but before Alan can explain the real reason behind it, a 02 reject walks in with tea and introduces herself as Alan's stepmother, Liz Lott. Alan then and Harvey confirms he wants to give Alan more siblings. Alan then asks them to quit yapping and get to the elephant in the room, and Harvey explains that Natalia is currently studying at their academy. Turns out the Evans family is in turmoil, but in reality, Natalia has intimidated them into doing chores for her, much to their shock. But he doesn't stop her because he doesn't want to interfere in students' personal matters. Charlotte starts to panic thinking Natalia is a baddie now, but Harvey demonstrates that while she makes others do her bidding, she has her moments of kindness as well. Harvey believes in giving freedom to the students. Alan agrees and turns to Charlotte, telling her it's best if she hides her identity for now and meets Natalia in disguise. As Harvey works on their fake identities, Alan decides to book a hotel, but Liz Lott convinces them to stay here for the duration of their stay. After she leaves, Alan stands there awkwardly, but Charlotte hesitantly tells him to just lie down with her. At night, Alan is in bed with Charlotte, and he apologizes to her because he lied earlier about their relationship and now they're here. Charlotte gives him the look that she's ready for his pogo stick, but Alan gets flustered and uses a magic spell to make himself fall asleep. When his magic fails, he realizes that his bed is coated with magic sealing materials, and the only person who can do it is Eruca, who is waiting for him to get a shoddy on his North Pole. As Alan tries to fall asleep, Charlotte turns to him and starts yapping about his step-parents being happily married and how she idolizes them as a couple. Hearing this, Alan starts imagining his own life with Charlotte and asks if he should become a simp like his father. Charlotte gets flustered upon hearing it, so Alan assures her they don't need to go that far for a pretense unless she wants to. Charlotte then asks him what he was going to say when they did skits for Dorothea, and Alan starts to get nervous, wondering if he should tell her the truth. Alan admits to himself that he loves spending time with Charlotte, while Charlotte thinks that everything is much more fun with Alan around. Alan doesn't want Charlotte to submit to his selfish desire, while Charlotte doesn't want to trouble Alan with her wanted status any more than she already has. In the end, they mutually decide not to talk about it and go to sleep instead. The next day, Alan casts a spell to change Charlotte's appearance, only to get bricked up by his own creation. Soon after, they head to the Magic Academy and find Natalia sitting by the same fountain. As soon as Alan approaches her, she changes her stance like a veteran fighter, and Alan is shocked to see her become this efficient in just 3 months. She asks him who he is, and Alan reveals he's a substitute teacher from the Crawford family. Natalia's allies recognize him as the naughtiest kid in school who used to fight his own teachers if they opposed him. And he's even famous for fighting the headmaster for 3 days straight. Natalia asks about the girl beside him, and Alan introduces her as his assistant Charlo. He then reveals he's been tasked with disciplining troublesome students, and when he offers a hand of friendship, Natalia ignores him and walks past him. Meanwhile, Charlo is overjoyed because she got to talk to Natalia after so long. Alan tells her it's just the beginning because she'll become Natalia's best friend soon, and the mere thought is enough to move her to tears. During class, Alan and Charlo sit beside Natalia, who impresses them by pointing out a mistake in the teacher's formula. Natalia also learns that Charlo doesn't know anything on the board, and Alan makes an excuse that she's new and in the process of learning the basics of magic. Alan then asks Charlo to learn from Natalia, and Charlo convinces her to teach her using her pretty privileges. After class, Charlo thanks Natalia for teaching her and reveals she has been protected by Alan until now. However, now she wants to become stronger so she can take care of herself and others around her. She promises to practice lighting magic like Natalia taught her, but Natalia says it's quite a difficult spell and she's free to seek help again if she wants. Just then, Lou and Gosetsu show up with lunch, and the whole academy is shocked to see 2 legendary creatures being all friendly with Charlo. Natalia questions who she really is, and Charlo explains she is a beast tamer over lunch. Charlo then questions Natalia's choice of lunch, pointing out that it is an imbalance and missing salad. As she leaves to get some, Natalia questions why she cares so much about her, prompting Alan to say it's because her younger sister is around the same age. Natalia then boldly asks him if he was sent by the Evans, stating that they are typical nobles in name only and she came here to leave the family. Alan comforts her by saying he knows what she's been through, including the matter with her sister Charlotte, but Natalia suddenly gets all serious and tells him never to bring up this subject again. As she prepares to leave, she is confronted by a guy named Chris who sees her as a rival and promises to end her reign. Natalia ignores his BS and continues walking, but when she sees Chris' men bullying Charlo, she immediately takes action against them. Before the matter escalates, Alan intervenes and calms them down, reminding them that they are in the cafeteria. Natalia calls him out for not caring about his assistant, but Alan menacingly states that he only wants to change the scenery. He then casts a subspace barrier and beats the living daylight out of Chris's squad, while also giving her a lecture on how to handle such situations. After restraining the students, Alan is about to hit them with a full-size spirit bomb, but Charlo surprisingly uses lighting magic to dispel his attack. She then scolds both Alan and Natalia for causing a scene, and her authoritative tone makes them both fall onto their faces to ask for an apology. Later, Alan is happy Charlo is regaining her confidence and feels proud that she was able to hurl a spell his way when earlier she was scared of a punching bag. He then turns to Natalia, revealing that she was initially only helping the outcasts but soon formed an army of them and was forced into this position of leadership. She admits she only came here to hone her craft, but guys like Chris make it much harder. Alan, in a moment of pure villainy, tells her that she must overcome these obstacles and become the undisputed ruler of this academy, much to her surprise. The next morning, Iruka storms into the room, immediately spotting Alan, Charlotte, and Natalia. She greets Natalia before introducing herself as Alan's sister and asks who she is. Natalia quickly shares how Alan has been teaching her how to take control of the academy and rise to the top. Iruka is completely stunned, while Alan explains that if Natalia manages to conquer the academy, all her problems will disappear just like your dad the moment you were born. After a whole yap session, Alan suggests a major challenge between Natalia and Chris, declaring that whoever wins will be the true ruler of the academy. Natalia's eyes light up with excitement, and Alan tells her he has a secret trick that will guarantee her victory. She instantly demands to learn this special technique, and Alan, clearly amused, tells her that she's smart enough to master anything he teaches her. Haruka finally speaks up and reminds Alan that their father sent him to guide Natalia onto the right path. Meanwhile, Charlotte starts panicking because she realizes her little sister has become a menace to society. That evening, Natalia easily defeats Chris, who can't live with the humiliation, and storms off. Just as Natalia starts celebrating, she notices a sealed dungeon entrance and asks why it's blocked off. Iruka casually explains that the dungeon boss is busy getting clapped like your mum at the club, so it's currently too dangerous to enter. Before Natalia can respond, her underlings arrive and proudly announce that they have taken care of all the troublemakers in the academy. Somewhat impressed, Natalia acknowledges their work, but the moment is interrupted when Gosetsu and Lu appear. Natalia instantly brightens up and thanks Gosetsu for helping train her minions. Gosetsu then shows authority over the students by disciplining them, and Natalia acknowledges her as a professor. After her subordinates leave, Alan turns to Natalia and asks why she never calls him professor, but she tells him not to get ahead of himself. Just then, Natalia's tummy growls and Charlotte takes her to the cafeteria, advising her to eat her veggies. At night, the group gathers for dinner, and Natalia pulls a disgusted face and complains about how much she hates veggies. Charlotte looks disappointed, and not wanting to upset her, Natalia forces herself to eat all of them. Seeing this, Charlotte excitedly offers her another serving, much to her dismay. Meanwhile, Iruka and Alan watch from a distance, commenting on how Natalia and Charlotte are unknowingly acting like real sisters. Iruka then asks Alan if he has talked to Natalia about Charlotte, but Alan says it's still a sensitive topic that's best avoided for now. However, Iruka calls him a wimp and jokes about him being too scared to face Natalia. Later that night, Natalia hesitantly asks Charlotte if she can teach her some new magic spells. Charlotte reminds her that she already has training lessons with Alan, but when she says she will manage, Charlotte quickly agrees. Just then, Natalia's minions join and ask to be trained as well, but Gosetsu tells them they're not worthy of it yet. Later, Natalia pushes herself too hard during training and ends up passing out. Alan and Charlotte carry her back to her dorm, and when they enter, they immediately notice a bag that Natalia has magically sealed. Though Alan is curious about what's inside, he decides it must be something important to her. Charlotte, not ready to leave yet, stays behind with Alan and watches Natalia sleep. She quietly remembers how, back when they lived with the Evans family, she used to read bedtime stories to Natalia. Now, however, Natalia refuses to talk about their family, making Charlotte believe that she completely hates them. With a heavy heart, she admits that she thinks Natalia hates her too. Gosetsu and Lu, who have been sitting nearby, reassure Charlotte that Natalia does love her because there's no way someone as kind as Charlotte could ever be hated. Alan agrees, saying it's too early for her to jump to conclusions. The next morning, Charlotte wakes up early, eager to train with Natalia and learn more magic together. After their session, Natalia excitedly invites Charlotte to her dorm, saying she has something important to show her. However, when they arrive, Natalia is furious to find that her bag is missing. She searches the entire room until she finally finds a letter from Chris, challenging her to meet him at a specific location if she ever wants to see her bag again. Filled with anger, Natalia rushes out without hesitation, telling Charlotte to keep this a secret from Alan. Meanwhile, Alan starts looking for Charlotte and Natalia, growing more and more concerned about how long they've been gone. Suddenly, one of Chris's lackeys runs up to him, out of breath, and tells him that Chris has lured Natalia into the dungeon for a battle. Alan's worry deepens, knowing that the dungeon boss is still laying eggs, making the situation even more dangerous. Deep inside the dungeon, Chris smirks as he tosses Natalia's bag into the abyss, declaring that whoever retrieves it first will be the true ruler of the academy. Without wasting a second, Natalia jumps into battle and quickly defeats Chris, reclaiming her bag. Just as she is about to leave, she senses something looming behind her. The dungeon boss, a massive and terrifying chimera, suddenly emerges, making both Natalia and Chris piss their pants. The beast lunges at Natalia with full force, ready to crush her completely. Just as it seems like she's about to be smashed, Charlotte bursts into the dungeon at the last second and saves Natalia from the chimera's deadly attack. Instead of showing gratitude, Natalia is filled with frustration and angrily asks Charlotte why she would risk her life for someone like her. Charlotte hesitates for a moment, then chooses not to reveal the whole truth. Instead, she simply tells Natalia that no matter how much of a baddie she is, she still needs a man to change the tires. Natalia casually mentions to Charo that she has a big sister, and Charo immediately jumps ahead, saying she knows about her sister committing a huge crime. But before she can finish her sentence, Natalia snaps back, saying that her sister would never do something like that and that she was framed by that rotten prince. Instead of helping her, the Evans family just abandoned her completely, and she blames herself for not being able to save her. She even states all of Charlotte's belongings were thrown away except this bag, which is why it is so dear to her. She further reveals she used a locator spell to find Charlotte using this bag, but her spell was jammed every time, which leads her to believe Charlotte has been captured. She vows to get stronger and crush the person who kidnapped Charlotte, so Charlo assures her that she will surely find her sister. Natalia then says even though she's known Charlo for a small amount of time, she also feels like an elder sister to her. Before Charlotte can finally tell Natalia the truth, Chris, who's been eavesdropping, suddenly starts bawling his eyes out over how tragic the story is. Just as reaches its peak, the ground shakes, and out of nowhere, a massive salamander appears. Turns out the Chimera was just a side character, and this chunky lizard is the real boss of the dungeon. Charlo quickly asks Natalia and Chris to skedaddle while she holds it back, but she convinces them to leave. As the salamander attacks Charo, the spell disguising her wears off, and Natalia suddenly finds herself face to face with an unconscious Charlotte. Right then, Alan steps in like a final boss, unleashing just a sliver of his mana, which is enough to make everyone freeze in awe and fear. As his magic is felt in the whole island, the once terrifying salamander immediately shrinks back and transforms into a harmless orange cat. Just then, his mother strolls in and casually drops the bombshell that Alan actually raised the salamander, making everything suddenly make way too much sense. Once the chaos settles, Chris apologizes to the headmaster for the mess, while Natalia and Charlotte finally have their long-awaited tearful reunion, where Natalia confesses that she always longed to hear another one of Charlotte's bedtime stories. Charlotte, feeling guilty, apologizes for lying to Natalia and keeping up the disguise for so long. Just as the emotional moment comes to a close, Lou and Gosetsu, who have been enjoying the drama from the sidelines, decide to stir things up by dropping that Alan is actually Charlotte's boyfriend. Natalia, already an emotional mess, loses it completely and starts attacking Alan. With everything back to normal, Alan and Charlotte return to the mansion, finally enjoying some well-deserved peace and quiet. Before they can talk about what they feel for each other, Maicha suddenly shows up with a mysterious package. The moment they open it, a summoning portal activates, and out pops Natalia, looking as smug as ever. Right behind her, Iruka appears and excitedly announces that they planned this as a surprise for Charlotte. Natalia then turns to Alan to beat him up for spoiling her sister, but before they can start, Dorothea walks in and explains that her editor, Yor, is forcing her to write a sequel to the book based on Alan and Charlotte's lies, so she's decided to go into hiding at their mansion. Alan, being the only one with common sense, immediately refuses, but Iruka works her magic and convinces him to just go with it since everyone's already gathered in one place anyway. That night, Alan throws a huge feast, and the entire squad enjoys themselves without a care in the world. However, later that night, when everyone's fast asleep, Alan and Charlotte sneak off to stargaze because in the book of How to Stay a Virgin, that's the naughtiest thing a man and a woman can do at night. As they sit together, their hands accidentally touch, and when Alan awkwardly tries to apologize, Charlotte softly admits that she never minded his touch in the first place. Just as they're about to share a kiss, Alan suddenly gets serious, raising his voice and ordering everyone to come out. Turns out, everyone was watching them from the shadows, and while some are furious at Alan for corrupting Charlotte, while others are way too excited about their romance. While the mansion turns into a cesspool of chaos, Prince Cecil finally learns about Charlotte's whereabouts and asks his men to capture her again. That's it for this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on post notifications to see more recaps like this. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.